In this training, in this video today, I'm going to share with you the 7 financial mistakes keeping six-figure earners broke, and more importantly, how to avoid them. So let's just get the party started this way, right? I remember back in the day growing up that, if you made six figures, man, mama, I made it, right? I'm a six figure. Well, y'all can finish the rest. But here's the deal, family. Like, it's crazy when you start to think about, if you made six figures, that was everyone's goal. If you made six figures, you made it. Or if you became a millionaire, you made it, right? But here's the deal, family, right? Here's the deal. Making six figures doesn't necessarily mean you made it in today's age, in today's time. It's almost like you got to make six figures just to be middle class, believe that or not, right? So, that being said, family, it's like, okay, as I'm working with so many of our students and even helping our clients navigate this, I'm seeing six-figure earners and six-figure households, like six-figure households, actually broke. And so when we hear the word broke, broke means different things to different people. Let me see if I can bring up my notes here because we actually did a training on this of what broke actually looks like. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can pull this up. Like the definition of broke and the terms, because I want to make sure that we all kind of level set here, right? Like when you talk about being broke, like what does that actually mean? So, some things that this is how you can tell if you're broke, because I think it's important to kind of have that conversation. You're broke if you cannot cover a $500 emergency without putting it on credit. You are broke if after you receive your paycheck or you get paid, you have nothing left to invest or use for wealth creation. You are broke if you have no control over your time and you have to show up to that job or you have to show up to that business and actually trade your time for dollars because there's no passive income coming in, right? You're broke if you're trying to figure out at the end of the year, how in the world am I going to pay for my taxes, because I've used all of that money and now I'm going into a payment plan because I cannot pay my taxes, right? These are just some telltale signs if you're broke or not, right? And what I'm finding is that there are a ton of six-figure earners who are broke in that sense, cannot cover an emergency without putting on a credit card, have debt out their ears. I'm talking about 50, 60, 100, $200,000 worth of debt, have no extra left over after the bills are paid to actually invest in cash producing assets so they can one day become financially free, and broke in the sense of their time is not their own. Somebody else controls their calendar. So if you're suffering from any of those, or you know somebody who's suffering from any of those, you're in the right place and you want to make sure that you share this video with somebody that you love and care about. All right, so let's just jump in here into it. There are 7 mistakes that we're seeing that all of these six-figure earners are making. And the lovely thing is that we've actually created a framework to solve for those mistakes because I have experienced this as well. There was a point in time that I was, working a job, had a job and was making good money, right? Or had real estate. And, I ended up being broke. And it's like, how in the world did I get here? So when I realized, like, man, there's other people suffering or dealing with the same thing I'm dealing with, making good income, but yet either broke or feeling like they're broke, I said, well, you know what? I want to create something to help alleviate that because I felt that pain, right? And I want to put people in a situation where they can actually see where they can become financially free. But it's almost impossible to get your head around financial freedom or even thinking about creating generational wealth or what we call generational security when you're broke, when you're just hand to mouth, when you're waiting for that next paycheck to come in to be able to cover the bills, right? So let's break this thing down into these 7 mistakes. But not only am I going to give you the 7 mistakes, and more importantly, I'm going to show you how to avoid mistakes. So, mistake number one, flying blind. Hold on, got this here because I want to be able to write these out here for you. Okay. So let me make sure that you guys can see my board here first. Okay, cool. Everybody can see my board. Let me just give it a second here to load up. Okay, great. All right, sweet. Okay, so mistake number one that you are more than likely making is flying blind. Okay. I'll just call these the eyes that don't work. Okay. Flying blind. So there it is. Okay, cool. I want to make sure that you guys can see it. All right. So, first mistake is flying blind. So, what I mean by flying blind is this: you have no idea what your numbers are. You have no idea where your money is actually going, and you're not tracking it, right? So, what we teach inside our cash flow unlock 5-day challenge is, one of the first things is that you have to start to think like the bank. So, in starting to think like the bank, you need to have what's called a personal profit and loss statement. You need to know how much money is coming in, which a lot of us know, but sometimes some people don't. But more importantly, you need to know how much money is going out, like down to the penny. You want to know, like, hey, this month I made this much amount of money. I made, let's say, $10,000 this month, right? How much of that $10,000 went out? How much went to taxes? How much went to necessities and living expenses? How much went to those variable expenses and things of that nature? You need to know that number. So this is the first mistake I see people make. It's like, hey, Perry, man, I'm in major debt. How in the world do I get out of it? Well, do you know how much money went out, left your account last month, or went out to expenses last month? No. Well, if we don't know that number, family, how in the world can we solve for the debt piece, right? We need to know this number because when we know this number, when we know how much is coming in and how much is going out, we know if we have a deficit, like are we in a negative every month, right? That's something we need to know. So, are you in a negative or are you in the positive? Right? And that number is super important. So let me tell you why this is just so important, right? One, if your goal and if you're following cash flow unlock, it's more than likely your goal. If it's not your goal, we're going to make it your goal today. Okay. So if your goal is to become financially free, and financial freedom is the point in time when your passive income or your monthly recurring income, semi passive income, is more than your monthly living expenses. That's what financial freedom is. You have to know what your expenses are. You have to know this number. Like down to the penny, down to the $100. And granted, there's going to be some variation in there, but you need to know if someone were to ask you, like, "Hey, man, what is your?" If I ask this, like, ask a client this, "Hey, what's your burn rate in your business?" Well, Perry, what do you mean my burn rate? Hey, what do you spend every month on average? You need to know that number because when you solve for that number, now you know what number to solve for to become financially free. So, first mistake is flying in the blind. How you fix that is you need to create a personal profit and loss statement. You need to have a personal profit and loss statement that shows you this is all my sources of income. And these are all my expenses. And this is what I have at the end of the month. So, flying blind is the number one mistake we see people make. Okay. Two, the next mistake that we see people make is this: not having an emergency fund. Okay. Now, I know a lot of folks have heard about, hey, you got to have, 3 months in your emergency fund. You got to have, 6 months in your emergency fund. There are some people who, believe in possibly having, 12 months in emergency fund. It varies from person to person, right? But we're going to change the way you think about emergency funds today. And I find this is one of the biggest mistakes that individuals make as well. What's technically an emergency, right? So they say you need to have an emergency fund. So typically folks will say, hey, you need to have this emergency fund in this high yield savings account. Okay, cool. Super dope. All right. Now, If an emergency, so let's say that your monthly expenses are 5,000 a month, and you got that times three in your emergency fund. So you have $15,000 in your emergency fund. What happens if you have a $15,000 emergency? Well, it's a good chance that emergency fund goes to zero. Then, if you have another emergency, you don't have anything to cover it, right? But more importantly, that $15,000 that was earning interest is now gone. Well, what we teach inside our financial freedom bootcamp is we teach, hey, if you're going to have an emergency fund, have a true emergency fund, an emergency fund that covers what we call life's limits. And what are those life's limits? Hey, have an emergency fund if you lose a job, right? If you lost your job today, do you have funds that could carry you for the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, right? You also want to have an emergency fund that's going to cover your eye, right? So this is, hey, what happens if you get ill? Man, I get sick and I can't work. Or, hey, a loved one gets sick and you need to take time off to take care of that loved one and spend some time with them. Very similar to what happened when my mother, was battling cancer, right? I was in a position where I didn't have to trade my time for dollars and I could spend time with my mom while she was transitioning, right? So, does your emergency fund provide you comfort if someone gets ill? The M, sometimes you have money shortages, right? When you have a money shortage, man, I'm just short this month. Do you have something that you can tap into to cover those money shortages? All right. The other I, investment opportunities. You know, I asked a crowd this question. I was giving a speech here a while back, and I asked a question. I said, "Hey, if you could invest with someone else's money, how often would you look at investment opportunities?" They're like, everybody's saying like all the time, right? So your emergency fund should also be a place for you to store cash so that if an investment opportunity comes up, you don't have to second guess and, oh my gosh, well, I want to do it, but I only have $15,000 in my high yield savings account. If I pull that out, I no longer have those dollars working for me, right? If you're using the emergency fund that we're suggesting, the same one that the Rockefellers use, then you're using a properly structured policy where you can actually access capital via a policy loan, go into that investment opportunity, but know that your money is still growing uninterrupted, right? So now you're able to invest and reduce your risk, mitigate your risk, knowing that your principal is still sitting there earning interest. And now you're having access to money, right? To then go out and invest in investment opportunities, right? Super important. Your T is life's transitions, right? Hey, do, our kid's about to turn 16. We need to buy a car, right? Do we want to use our savings or do we want to use a properly structured account where my money can continue to grow and we can be our own bank and finance our own car for our kids, right? So that's a mistake that we see people make is not having the emergency fund and not having the right kind of emergency fund, right? Because again, a high yield savings account, yep, that give you some comfort knowing that those dollars are there. But when an emergency comes up, those dollars are immediately depleted. And now you lose the opportunity for those dollars to make money. Right. So this is the second mistake that see people make. Because when you don't have an emergency fund, you don't have the freedom to go out and live life. But more importantly, if you don't have a properly structured emergency fund, you don't have an emergency fund that can truly covers life's limits and not put you in harm's way, right? So you got to have an emergency fund to be able to cover those unexpected bills and crises and cover life's limits, right? Because if you don't, now your credit card and your debt now becomes your fallback. Now you're going into debt to cover emergencies when you should be able to cover those emergencies with a properly structured emergency fund, right? So that's number two. Number three, I'll pull up in here for you, right? Is what we call, the trying to save and invest manually, right? And here we want you to figure out how to invest, right, on automation, right? So I'm putting here mistake number three, manually investing. Okay. Perry, what do you mean when you say manually invest? Okay, let me break it down. Let me break it down here for you. Manual investing is when you actually have to be like, okay, let me move some money from this account and let me go invest in this account over here. And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes we get busy. Sometimes, like, it's not the right time. The market is doing something. I don't want to do it now, right? It requires energy, right? And here's the deal, we have a finite amount of energy per day. One of the best analogies I heard is this. Everybody's kind of think about a gas tank in a car, right? You fill that bad boy up, you know what I'm saying? So you fill it up with whatever, 12, 15 gallons or whatever the case may be, right? And you drive all day. At the end of the day, that gas is gone. Guess what the car didn't care about? The car didn't care where you drove. It didn't care if you just drove around the corner all day. It didn't care if you drove, to another state or through a couple states, right? It didn't care if you kind of just stayed in one place and just let the gas burn. You have a finite amount of energy per day. Use that energy very, very discreetly, right? It's kind of like time in your day. You have a finite amount of time in a day, right? So time is that thing that you can't get back. Kind of same way with your energy for the day. So instead of, using your energy to have to think about what to invest in, what if you already predetermined where you're going to put your money, right? And it could be $100 a month, 1,000 a month, 10,000 a month, you know, 20,000 a quarter. We have clients and students who are all across the spectrum where they're putting in $50 a month into a strategy, or they're doing, $10,000 a quarter into a strategy. Like, it totally ranges. But what's lovely about it is it's on autopilot. They don't have to think about it. The money comes out automatically, because anytime you have to do something manually, you run the risk of it not getting done versus setting it on autopilot. So this is one thing I see that stops six-figure earners and other high income earners from creating wealth, right? Because everything is manual. What if you set it up to where you were automatically investing anywhere to 10 to 25% of your net income? Let that sink in for a second, family. What if you were investing? What if from the time that you started making money, from the time you got that first job when you was 19, 20, 23 years old, whatever the case may be, what if you had been consistently investing 25% of on autopilot? How much would you have today on accident? We call this becoming a accidental millionaire. And literally is setting up the accounts, identifying where the monies are going to go. You can have maybe two separate accounts. One account that's getting 10%, another account that's getting another 10%, another account that's getting 5%. But what if you have those set up automatically? How much would you have in assets today? Right? That could be turned into wealth. So that's a mistake that we see people make, is doing everything manually versus setting things up on auto pay. I invest in crypto. I think a lot of people know that. Let me say, actually, a lot of people don't know that because I don't promote it. But I invest in crypto, and I invest weekly in the crypto. And I don't care if the crypto is up or the crypto is down. I have a fixed dollar amount that goes in weekly. And now I just look at the account. I see how much, how many dollars are in front of the comma, how many digits are in front of the comma, and I just keep on going because I'm investing in something that I believe in, right? So if you have a strategy that you believe in, why not set it up to go automatically? If that is invested in a mutual fund, set it up automatically. If that's invested in your cash value policy, set it up automatically. If that's invested in an IUL, set it up automatically. If that's invested in, whatever the case may be, if you just set it on autopilot, that's one less thing you have to think about. And now you avoid what we call decision fatigue. I know, I looked at our numbers the other day. I shared this with my wife. We have $64,000 going out automatically on autopilot to invest in our different strategies. $64,000 per year. And it's funny because, sometimes we feel like, man, things are really tight right now. But then we look at our assets and be like, we're actually set up extremely well. Okay, yeah, it's not a lot of money in the bank account, but why would I want a lot of money in the bank account? I want a lot of money in assets that are growing and growing 10, 100 times X of what I'm earning in the bank account. So again, automation, right? Mistake we see people make is manually investing. How to fix that is you need to put it on autopilot. Okay. Now, the next mistake that we see people make here is this being over dependent on the banking system. Perry, what do you mean being over dependent on the banking system? I don't know if you know any truly wealthy people. Wealthy people, who, have seven, eight, 10, figures net worth and things of that nature, right? But if you really, I've interviewed a ton of them. That kind of made that my life's missions is, hey, I'm gonna go interview some people who are out here doing the thing, right? With respects to that, I asked them like, hey, so where do you get your financing? That's like financing. We do that ourselves, right? We set up and the accounts that we are automatically or investing in, the assets that they're growing are all assets that can be used as collateral to get access, what I'm saying, to capital. So they have their own family banks like the Rockefellers when they use, properly structured, funded, optimally funded cash value policies became their own bank. You have folks who know how to use the, strategy to where they can actually get a line of credit based upon their investment accounts, right? So the account that holds their cash and their stocks and their mutual funds, continuing to let that to grow and being able to get a line of credit for that. We have folks who have figured out that they can actually leverage some of their retirement accounts to get access to money to go buy real estate or start a business or invest in a franchise, right? So the more you can stop depending on the banking system, the more freedom you have of the actually the not just the freedom that you have, but the ability to go out now and acquire cash flow generating assets without having to come up with 10,000 tax returns and debt to income ratio and hey, what's your kid's blood type and hey, you made a mistake 10 years ago on your credit report, right? You forgot to pay the Hulu bill and whatever the case may be, right? You got a 30-day late on there that's still coming back to bite you in the butt, right? Being too over dependent on the traditional banking system and not learning how to become your own bank, right? Not learning how to use the equity in the assets that you're growing to be able to use that equity in those assets as the collateral to go get access to capital, right? And some of those lines of credit and loans that we're talking about don't even report to the credit bureau. Shh. Don't tell nobody. They don't want y'all to know that there are actually loans that don't report to the credit bureau and aren't not credit driven. Perry, what you mean? You mean there's opportunities to get access to capital even though I got a 500 credit score or 400 credit score? Yeah, there are. But these are the things that you need to learn. And this is a mistake I see a lot of people make is being overly dependent upon the traditional banking system. Understand, family, the traditional banking system was not created to help you. It was created to profit off of you, right? The bank isn't giving you a loan because they just, man, I really want to see you win. No, they're giving you a loan because they're hoping to collect that interest. And then they're putting liens on things like your home and your businesses and things of that nature. So if you don't pay, they reduce their risk and they can get their money back. So the banks aren't giving you money because, like, oh man, we really want to help you. No, that is a business decision. Hence why they have underwriting guidelines and all these hoops that you have to jump through because they have to make a good business decision. And unfortunately, if you've made some mistakes or some missteps throughout the year, you may not qualify for that bank financing. So if you don't have access to capital where you can actually fund your own deals, then you may be missing out on some opportunity. So this is a mistake that I see people make over here as well, being over dependent on the banking system, family. All right. Now, how do you fix that? Because again, I'm showing you guys how to fix it. You learn how to do 4D banking. Again, something that we teach inside our financial, freedom boot camp, our cash flow unlocked 5-day challenge is, hey, how do you become your own bank with the assets that you currently have? I can't tell you, like I can give you numerous stories. Client, you know what I'm saying? Client Jen I was rocking with. Boom. We're putting her plan together. We're showing her our framework and how to set her finances up so that she can retire early. And boom, I think she went out and got a $200,000 line of credit that she didn't even know she had available. Had another client brought me in to speak to some coaches and got in front of the room. My man David got right in front of the room and said, "Hey, y'all need to listen to this brother Perry. We found out we had access to over $100,000 that we didn't even know we had access to. And up to last time I checked, they've already gone on and bought two rental properties. One I think they're going to flip, another one they're going to keep with that $100,000 they didn't even know they had access to, right? So stop being over dependent upon banks and learn how to become your own banking system. All right, number 5, mistake we see people make: paying off debt wrong way. Okay, Perry, what do you mean paying off debt the wrong way? So, do you believe there's a right and a wrong way to do everything? Do you believe that there are more efficient ways, there are less efficient and more efficient ways to do everything, right? I believe that. From sports to, business to relationships, there are ways to get it done that take a long time, are less efficient, and have less benefits. And there are ways to do things that are more efficient and have more benefits. So there are right and wrong ways to pay off debt. Just throwing stuff on the board and hoping it sticks is not the way to pay off debt. The way to pay off toxic debt is to be very, very strategic. How we go about it is we look at, hey, I want to analyze each of the debts, right? Analyze each of the debts. And then from there, what we want to determine is what is the most toxic to the cash flow. And those are the ones that we want to attack first. So we analyze the debts, we put them in order of what needs to be paid off first. We continue to make all the minimum payments. And then from there, we then snowball into that piece. But there's an added piece to it. Did you know there's a way to pay off debt and build wealth at the same damn time? Well, if this system that I'm showing you here, this 7-step system that we're showing here, that we teach inside our 5-day challenge, is what we created a method called the DAM method, the debt annihilation money nurturing method. Hey, did you know that you could actually fund an account and then be able to use that account to get the money to pay off the toxic debt while still continuing to grow your money? That's why we call it the damn method. One reason, because when people realize that that's how the wealthy have been doing it all this time and how the banks have been doing all this time, they say damn. Right? So, hey, there's a strategic way to annihilate debt. Right. So I see this as a mistake that people make all the time. Is, debt has such an emotional pull to it that just like, oh, I gotta pay off this, I gotta pay this off. I gotta pay off this credit card. I gotta pay off this student loan. I gotta pay off this mortgage. Was literally talking to a client today. I advised them, hey, I would not start to, liquidate my retirement accounts to pay off the mortgage and these other things. But in their mind, it's like, I just want to get this debt paid off. Now we're dealing with a situation that they owe taxes because they liquidated their assets instead of using our strategies to just pay the assets off in time by keeping the assets in place, right? So here's the deal. I see it happen all the time. Debt is such an emotional conversation, on such an emotional topic that more times than not, people make the mistakes of paying it off the wrong way, where there's a more efficient way to pay it off. And also, let me throw this in here just as another value add here. Something that rich and wealthy people don't do, they don't sell cash flow, cash flowing assets. They don't sell cash flowing, appreciating, tax advantaged assets. Why would you sell an asset that is growing in value, producing cash flow, and also giving you tax advantages, right? Keep those assets intact and figure out how to use those assets to again get somebody else's money to then pay off the debt so that you can keep your assets growing. Again, this is something we see happen all the time. I know it happens all the time because I've done it. I've made an emotional decision like, you know what? Shoot, I'm just going to cash this out and pay this off. Some of the worst decisions I've made, right? So that's why we created this framework to help guide you so you don't make those same decisions. Okay. Number 6 that we see happen, right, is treating taxes as a bill, not a strategy. Treating taxes as a bill versus a strategy. Get that out the way. Well, Perry, what do you mean? Here's the deal, family. I love tax season. I know that sounds weird, right? I love tax season, right? Because last tax season, after making multiple six figures, our total tax rate was 4%. 4%, family, right? Not 25, not 30, but 4%. And these upcoming years is probably going to be closer to zero, right? So here's the deal. If 51% of your money is going towards taxes, when you look at federal, state, city, um, sales tax, property tax, all the taxes, if so much of your money is going to taxes, especially if you're a six-figure earner, you should be spending as much time as you can trying to figure out how to reduce your taxes, right? And how you reduce your taxes as a six-figure earner, a high income earner, is you have to look at tax strategies like real estate. You have to look at tax strategies like entrepreneurship and home-based businesses. You have to look at tax strategies where your money can grow tax deferred. You have to start looking at, hey, do I have too much money over in these taxable buckets? How do I get into the tax-free buckets, right? This is a mistake I see too many people make. They just kind of just succumb to the idea like, oh my gosh, my tax bill is going to be this and I gotta pay it. Okay. Why is it that the rich and the wealthy are paying sometimes less in taxes than the middle class and the impoverished, right? I know that comes up in a lot of conversations. Oh my gosh, the wealthy are avoiding tax. Did you know you can use the same strategies they use? Like you don't have to be a multi-millionaire or billionaire to get home-based business write-offs. You don't have to be a millionaire or multi-billionaire, right, to purchase real estate and learn how to use cost segregation studies and accelerated depreciation and things of that nature, right? You don't have to be a millionaire or multi-billionaire to employ your kids or to use or to use the Augusta rule where you can rent your home out for 14 days out the year, creating a business expense, but not having to pay income taxes on those rent dollars, right? You don't have to be a millionaire or multi-billionaire to run these plays. You just have to learn these plays, right? Learn the plays, and you can run them where you're at today. Stop just laying down and trying to just accepting the fact like, oh, my tax bill, it is what it is. I got to pay so much in taxes. When other people are out here paying the least amount in taxes through tax avoidance, not tax evasion, tax avoidance. Like everybody who's not pay, who's sitting in a 0% tax bracket aren't tax evaders. They understand the tax code and they use it to their advantages. But in order to, but you have to understand it. You have to learn it. Learning how to reduce your taxes is a skill set. Whew, goodness gracious. All right, let me get here to number seven. Number seven, biggest mistake I see people, high earners make is only earning from your effort. So this is, when you're trading time for dollars, right? Doesn't matter if you're a doctor making $1 million a year, doesn't matter if you're an accountant, doesn't matter if you're a mechanic, what I'm saying, you're a janitor, a school teacher. If your only source of income is coming from you trading your time for that compensation, then you're making a huge mistake. The only way to become financially free is to start to replace your active income with passive income. That is what financial freedom is. Don't believe me? What do y'all think Social Security is? It is passive income coming in to cover your monthly expenses. What do you think, pensions are? It is passive income coming in to cover your monthly expenses. Unfortunately, we've been conditioned to believe that we got to work to age 65 or 70 to get these things, when in all actuality, you can start to create those things today. You can start to create those passive income streams today, but you have to be super intentional about it. But more importantly, you have to educate yourself on what you can do. We're not saying quit your job. We're not saying, hey, you also got to go out and buy a 100-unit apartment building. But what are the things that you can do today to start to replace your income? More importantly, what are the things that you can do today that can start to give you a monthly recurring income to start to cover those monthly expenses? Starting small. Hey, my monthly expenses are 5,000 a month, but my car note is 500. Okay, what can I do today to start to receive $500 a month passive income? Is that, starting an online course? Is that selling a book? Is that, partnering with somebody and rolling some type of phenomenal offer out here where we can get $500 a month? Like, start there and then start to just knock down your other expenses with passive income. That's how you become financially free. Because, and what's lovely about that, financial freedom is no longer about an age. Financial freedom is now about your cash flow, right? So, what can you do today to start driving that number, right? So, that mistake is only earning from trading your time. You know what I'm saying? When you trade your time for dollars, you have to figure out how to get money without trading your time for dollars. And I'm not saying, right, because there's always the argument like, well, there's no real sources of passive income, right? You always got to do something. Damn right, you always got to do something, right? You want to maintain that passive income, right? But do you have to put in 40 hours a week to do it? Do you have to put in 20 hours a week to do it? Or can you do it for 15 hours a week? I'm sorry, can you do it for 2, 3 hours a week, right? So whether it's 100% passive or semi-passive, right? You need to be thinking about how you take those excess dollars and those strategies and then going out and buying cash flow producing assets, which ideally give you cash flow, but also give you tax benefits, right? So these are the seven mistakes that we see people make. Now, the lovely thing is, it's the middle of the year. And I know you're probably like, well, Perry, why is it lovely that it's the middle of the year? Hey, I'm a former athlete, right? So this is what I call halftime, right? Sit down and take notice and review what you've accomplished for 2025. If you're watching this video, it's July 1st 2025 as I'm recording this, which means we are at exact halfway point of the year, right? We are now about to go into a third quarter. We go into the locker room, recalibrate. Hey, we're down 10 points, we're up 20, right? This is working, this isn't working. And then ask yourself, what is it that you need in order to go to the next level in the second half of this 2025 game? I'll tell you what you need. You need access to information, right? Not just access to information, but access to information as well as implementation. Because there's a bunch of information out there, but are you implementing it? Are you getting the information in such a way from a trusted source that you can implement it? Well, the great news is that's why we created our cash flow unlocked 5-day challenge. We usually call it our financial freedom boot camp, but it's a 5-day challenge where we're going to show you exactly how to implement our framework where you can start to unleash your cash flow. And when we say unleash and unlock your cash flow, we're talking about releasing, unleashing the potential of your income. You make good income, but you don't feel like it. And the reason you don't feel like it is because you don't have the right systems in place, nor have you received the right coaching. So that's why this video here is a hard promotion for our cash flow unlock 5-day challenge, right? And check this out, something that we've never done before in the past. We are opening up the doors to general admission at no cost, no financial cost. But I can't say it's free. It's no financial cost because you still have to pay with time, energy, and effort. And if you're willing to spend some time with us for 5 days, learning these strategies, learning how not to make these mistakes, but more importantly, what systems to put in place that's going to allow you to start to taste financial freedom, start to see a pathway forward that's going to reduce your taxes, which is going to help you increase your cash flow, which is going to help you buy your time back, then you want to make sure that you register for this upcoming boot camp. It starts July 7th and is going to be absolutely fire. And this is the only time, and more than likely the last time, that we open the doors to general admission for no financial cost. But you still need to show up and do the work. And our promise to you is if you show up and do the work, you're going to experience a transformation. You're going to know exactly what you need to do to become financially free. You're going to know exactly how to set up an emergency fund that truly covers life limits. You're going to have an idea of what to automate. You're going to understand 4D banking and start to realize, like, oh my goodness, I can go shopping for investments tomorrow because I didn't even realize I had access to these opportunities. You're going to understand how to reduce your taxes and how to leverage the tax code through real estate and entrepreneurship. And you're going to realize that not all passive income requires a bunch of money out of pocket. That you can start to you can start to create passive income by just a skill set that is already in you, a seed that has already been planted in you. So that being said, register for the event today. Get you a spot while spots are still available before we shut the doors. Because if we get to capacity, we're going to shut the doors because you want to take advantage of this today. And I will see you on the next video. Peace.